Hey guys, welcome to the Ramsey Paul Show. Yes, I'm back without my sunglasses. I feel much better. I can see much better. It's good to be back with a regular show. And I got my phone on airplane mode, so no distractions. We're good to go. We have a lot of stories to discuss today. 5. We do the top 5 stories of the day. And as always, thank you so much for watching. If you like the show, be sure to like and subscribe, share it with your friends, and they can get a news update every day. I'm growing the channel. I really do appreciate your help. All right. The number one story is an iconic American restaurant, especially in the South. But I think they're all over the country, the Midwest. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if they're international, but it's Cracker Barrel. Cracker Barrel, this used to be their old logo, or their current one, is with the country gentleman sitting by a Cracker Barrel. And now they took him out and they just have a boring corporate logo. It's horrible. And a little background, because I know I have an international audience. Some people may not understand the whole Cracker Barrel vibe. Cracker Barrel is a restaurant, and the term Cracker Barrel refers to a barrel that used to have what they call soda crackers. And years ago, in the late 19th century, early 20th century, you had country stores more than restaurants. You had a lot of country stores. And in the country stores, a lot of the products they had in barrels. And one of the barrels products they would have in a barrel would be what they call soda crackers. Now, a soda cracker, I don't know if they exist anymore, but they're pretty equivalent to what we call a saltine cracker now, one of those thin, salty crackers. So they used to store them in these barrels. This is before refrigeration and all that. And people would come into the general store and they would gather, small town communities, and they would eat crackers. But more than that, on the barrels, they would sometimes play checkers or other games like that. And so it's kind of a gathering place for the rural Americans, small town Americans. And the country store concept, it kind of went away before I was born. I've never been into a country store where they had a Cracker Barrel for real. But what happened is they decided, well, let's make a restaurant that brings back that vibe of, especially in the South, but also in the Midwest, rural communities, farming communities, a sense of the Cracker Barrel, but more than that, just the feel, the country feel. And these stores, so they had a whole bunch of stuff like on the wall, old farming equipment, old photos, and they would have a gift shop. And it was cozy. It just felt like part of Americana. And that was their brand. It was a very effective brand. But all of a sudden, especially after George Floyd, certain people, they had an issue with it. It's too white. It's too white. Because because most of these country towns, this country, except for the South, was over 90% white, and in most of the countries, like 100% white. And so, yeah, it definitely had a white vibe. And so that upset these people, because these people have been taught anything that deals with whiteness is evil. We got to eliminate whiteness, which is a problem for Cracker Barrel, because that's really their whole gimmick of getting people in, of nostalgia, of the small town. You don't want to go in nostalgia of the hood where gangbangers are shooting each other and some big fat obese woman is twerking her ass on the police car. You don't want that. You want the country gentleman and friends playing checkers, that type of vibe. And then you had some country fried chicken with mashed potatoes, maybe some grits. That's what you're looking for. And then you go into the little store and you can buy, I don't know, cross stitching patterns or Christmas stuff. Very cluttered but cozy. And obviously the restaurant didn't exclude blacks. We can't do that yet. But you'd see blacks attend these restaurants. I saw. In fact, the last time I went, I saw a black couple. And the reason I remember them is because after they ate the meal, the guy brought the waitress over and said, I didn't really like it. My potatoes weren't good enough. He was fishing for a discount. It's so common. I could have just predicted that would happen. And sadly, he probably got it there too, because they're scared of being called racist. So when I saw that they're redesigning this, what they're trying to do is to keep the name Cracker Barrel, but take out everything it's associated with. And the first thing was the logo. They cut out the country gentleman and the Cracker Barrel. And they just have a boring corporate design, right? And then immediately when I saw this, I'm like, I know the person responsible for this, I'm almost for certain, is a woman in her 40s, probably with big glasses. I just had that feeling. And what do you know? What do you know? I'm like a mind reader. I'm a prophet. And let's just take a look at the lady responsible for this here. And here she is. This is her. I just called it. I called it. The CEO of Cracker Barrel, as woke as they come. She got into this whole somehow associating homosexuality and I guess cross-dressing and drag queens with American Southern charm. I don't know how that goes together, but she thought this was an important thing to do. So she did that first. And people like, you try to ignore it. But now she's doing more bold. She goes, no, we can't have the Southern charm. That's too white. That's too white. We got to improve it. So let me just show you an example of how it used to look. Here's a picture of a old Cracker Barrel, or recently until now, anyway, how it would look inside. I've been to Cracker Barrel many times here in Fayetteville. There's one up on the way to, I think it's Springdale. There's one in Rogers off 49. And you go in and it does look like this, right? So you see all the nostalgia stuff on the walls that has to do with like farm equipment from the early 20th century, old photos. And as you see, it's a very white clientele. So it's a nice area. You don't have shootings, you don't have disruptions. People aren't throwing tables. And it has a kind of a good vibe to it. But she's like, no, we can't have that. No, we can't have that. So this is how the updated Cracker Barrels are going to look. She's like, okay, we got to take that and remove the soul. So here's what it is. It's just going to look like this generic, soulless type of architecture design that you would see, let's say, in San Francisco or something. We've seen this a million times. There's nothing there. It doesn't, it's like every other modern restaurant is boring. It's just crazy. It's just really crazy what they're doing here, because they're taking away the whole appeal of Cracker Barrel. They're taking why people found that interesting. I mean, the food wasn't that great. It's just generic American sloppy. Let's just be honest. They probably pre-cook it. I mean, it's not bad. I like it, but so it's the charm that they try to get people in, and they're stripping that out. It's just really crazy. It'd be like, we're still going to have Christmas, but we'll remove Jesus and we'll remove all the decorations. We'll remove references to Santa and the whole thing, and the carols. We'll remove all that, and we'll just have some bland image. It doesn't make any sense. But this woke lady decided this is what they need to do. So I'm done with Cracker Barrel. I'm not making a big to-do about it, but I don't see a reason to go back. So this is, I think, their Bud Light moment. Remember, Bud Light decided, we're mostly working class guys, blue collar guys that like to drink our beer. We got to expand it. So they had some woman, some feminist decided what we need to do is get a guy that wears a dress and prances around to market our product, Dylan McVaney. And that was the disaster. And so now we have this other woman with problem glasses deciding, no, we can't have country charm anymore. That's racist. So let's just make it some generic, soulless looking place. Crazy how they have put people like this in power at these restaurants. So, well, good luck, Cracker Barrel. We will miss you. But that's okay. There's some diners around me that are still actually pretty legitimate, privately owned. All right. So that was the number one story that came out. And number two story. And I guess some Russian hackers, this has to do with Russia and the war. Russian hackers infiltrated the general staff of the Ukrainian armed forces, uncovering a database that reveals Ukraine has suffered 1.7 million servicemen killed or missing during the war, what they call the special military operations. And they break it down by year. This seems a little high to me. I knew that Ukraine, because they lie about everything, they were lying about their casualties. It was a lot higher than they let on. But we're having some now, it looks like some proof that it was a horrific slaughter that's going on. And it needs to end. And I agree with Trump trying to end this war, but we need to get out of this. Now, some follow-up concerning the meeting he had with the Europeans and Zelensky is going nowhere. And I still praise Trump for trying, but this idea, they tried this weird idea of security guarantees, which is a way for pull the United States in the war. Basically, the Europeans, they tried this game with the Russians, assuming the Russians were stupid. And the Russians may be a lot of things, but they're not stupid. But one of the things that we're trying to do, because Russia had as a big red line, one of the reasons for the war is we don't want NATO in Ukraine. NATO's been hostile. You guys did a coup in Ukraine. We know you're going after us next. We won't tolerate this on our border. Ukraine must be neutral. It can't be part of NATO. And so that was a big thing. So in the negotiations, Trump early on said, oh, no. We'll never have Ukraine and NATO. I understand your point of view. That you're right. We promised that we want to bring Ukraine in NATO, but like always, we lied and we're trying to bring them in. We're not going to bring them in. So the Europeans had this clever idea of what they called a security guarantee, which is basically once there's a peace, if the peace is violated, we are obligated to come in and fight for Ukraine. And obviously the peace would be violated. If nothing else, Zelensky would launch a false flag, and that would be the excuse. You'd have Lindsey Graham and all those types demanding we send American boys, not to his bedroom, but to the front line to fight against the Russians. And he would say, we have to now because we gave them a security guarantee. So that's what they're trying to avoid, the Russians. But see, the Europeans thought this was clever. So it's basically bringing Ukraine into NATO with the Article 5 protection. Article 5 means if one of your nations is attacked, everyone else helps defend it. So they're like, okay, well, what we'll do, we'll bring Ukraine into NATO, basically be part of NATO, but we just won't call it NATO. Otherwise, it's exactly the same. And Russians are not dumb. They're like, you're not going to fool us with that. Stop with that bullshit. So the whole security guarantee that like Macron is big on, it's not going to go anywhere with that. Now, Russians said, hey, well, we're okay with people that aren't in this conflict as like the peacekeepers, because it doesn't make sense for you guys to be the peacekeepers because you're at war with us, basically. We need a neutral party in, I don't know, like India or something, but not you guys. And so it's all kind of went sideways there. And meanwhile, the killing keeps going and Russia keeps rolling up the Donbass. So that was the number 2 story, was the Ukrainian war casualties being bigger than people thought. All right. Here's what happened here is there's this park ranger or biologist or something. I don't know. I think I don't know if it's a woman pretending to be, I think it's a man that pretends to be a woman. And he's and it's like a real weird mustache, but with pretending to be a woman. Yeah, I think there's fingernail polish. So it's like this weird thing. And he decided to hire to fly this huge transgender flag. So basically defacing this beautiful view, right? So you don't go to a national park to see someone that you would expect to see after midnight in some weird underground club in San Francisco. Okay. If it's like late at night, 2 a.m., Friday night, your underground gay club in San Francisco, you would expect to see this thing prance out, right? And and a lot of other things. That's not my scene. You don't want to go to a state park or a national park and see this. But unfortunately, that's what we have. And so he went up there and I'm not, let me see, I'll just keep it off of mute. Yeah, because I don't want to there and decided to put a big flag up there. I mean, that's not the point of the job. I mean, I'd be cool, go up there, put a giant Confederate battle flag, but that's not the point of it. So this guy was making a political statement and he was fired. Good, good. This needs to happen. Your job there is to do your job, not to deface the nature's beauty, trying to get people to believe in your mental craziness. And that's not really what that's about. So that was the number 3 story. All right, the number 4 story. This has been going on a while. I just want to kind of break this down for you a little bit. It's the let's see here. It's the Texas redistricting is going forward, and let me just show it to you real briefly, and I'll just kind of try to explain it as best as I can. Texas passes GOP redistricting plan after weeks-long standoff. So Texas, what Texas is trying to do is to redistrict their state to help Republicans get more people in Congress. It's called gerrymandering. It's very common. All the blue states do this. The state legislature, typically you redraw the boundaries after the census is done, the U.S. Census every 10 years. But in Texas, they decided to redo it now under Trump's encouragement. And they have to have a special legislature forum to do this. So what happened is the governor, Greg Abbott, he called a special session to redraw the districts. And again, most states do this sort of thing. And if you're the state, if you're the political power in charge of the state, you try to do this to maximize the amount of candidates that you will have or representatives on your party. And so what has happened is when they were trying to do this, trying to do the redistricting, 50 Texas House Democrats left the state. And so they weren't in the state of Texas. And the reason they did that is the Texas House requires at least 100 of its 150 members to be present to conduct official business. And they decide, hey, so, we know we're going to lose this vote. So they can't conduct the session if we leave the state. So this is known as quorum breaking. It was some desperate measure to prevent the vote. But they were threatened with being arrested and they've returned to the state. And it looks like this is going to happen, that Texas will redistrict. It will probably give Republicans 4 or 5 more congressmen. And this is also the big scandal, too, in America in general. Most House seats are not competitive. I don't know if you guys know that. You're really not. So if you win the primary, you're going to win the seat. That was like AOC. They knew she was going to win the seat before the election when she beat that Jewish guy in the primary, because it's just a heavily Democrat district. You could put a pig in there. Well, maybe they did, but you could put a pig run and the pig would win. And I'm not joking. That's how it is. And most of these districts in America are that way. I live in such a district, but with the Republican side. In the district I live in, you could put anyone you could put the pig there and put an R by his name. He's going to be elected when the general election happens. So how you divide these districts is really determine who's going to be in Congress. And this got the Democrats all upset, but they don't really have that much of a right to be upset because the Democrats have done this all the time in their states. I think California is threatening to do this sort of thing, but I'm not really quite sure. if that's going to make much of a difference. Again, the blue states can't really retaliate because they've already done this. And so the thing is, more red states need to do this, because the Republicans are always like, oh, we got to play fair, even though the Democrats are playing dirty. So the Republicans are deciding, hey, we're going to play dirty too. And the Democrats are squealing like bitches. So that is that. All right, the number 4 story. Let me bring this up here. And let's see here. I'm going to bring this higher so so you guys can see it. If I could have my producer bring this up. My producer. Young adults' personalities are changing with being conscientious. Conscientious is in a free fall. This is where, like, you're in a movie theater, you don't talk loud because you don't want to disturb other people. Or if you're on the subway, you just don't have some boombox and you're just doing your funky rant dance, even though it disrupts everyone else, but you don't give a shit because no one's going to tell you what to do. And it used to be people would be more conscientious, especially back in the time of Cracker Barrel days, that they're going the old America. But that's changing now, and that's in a free fall. And I guess a lot of the takeaway is, oh, this is probably because of social media or something like that. I'm like, no, it's because of diversity. Young people are less white than they were in the past in America, so that you're going to see this. So being conscientious is a really equivalent with intelligence, because you have to have a certain intelligence to think, how do my actions affect others? Like, maybe I want to do a funky dance and dance around on the subway, but maybe other people would rather just read the book or enjoy the ride in silence. But see, when you have a low IQ, a lot of them are average around 75 IQ, and based on certain places on the globe, they don't have that ability, or they don't care. It's very hard for them to process that. And as we're bringing a lot of these people into our country and it's exploding, they don't have the thought process. They don't have the ability to say, oh, I'm not going to do that because it's going to make it uncomfortable for other people. Now, Asians do this. They have this in spade, especially Northeast Asians like Japanese. They're very conscientious of others. And it used to be that way in America. You don't see that as much anymore. You also see this now in just general honesty, the honor system. That only works with people that have honor. And a lot of these people, they do not have honor, so they don't even understand that. And I used to see this in Halloween. I used to talk about this. And when I lived in almost 100% white neighborhood, if I wasn't home, I could put a bucket of candy out with a sign, please just take one. Everyone followed the rules. Once diversity was bussed in, the first person there would be like, hey, no one's here. Well, this guy be a fool, and take the whole bucket. So it's the different types of people. One of the reasons I don't like multiculturalism, I don't want to live around such people. I don't like their behaviors. But I think that explains why younger people are less polite and conscientious. It's not so much a cultural thing, it's a diversity demographic thing. So those were the top 5 stories. The first story is Cracker Barrel is going woke. They're going away from what made their country charm. Number 2, we got information that Ukraine, surprise, surprise, has been lying about their death toll. And it's actually quite horrific how many Ukrainians have died in this stupid war. Number 3, some trans guy was fired because he put this ugly flag on the mountains. And so he's gone. That's good. Number 4, Texas redistricting is starting again. I got the Democrats all upset, but this is going forward. And then number 5, young American personalities are changing. And I think I got to the real reason why. So guys, thank you again for the top 5. I enjoy doing these videos. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.